about 62 lawmakers, when you count, supporting impeachment of Donald Trump. And they're all Democrats except for one. And now that one, Congressman Justin Amash, is facing the wrath of his own party. He formally resigned from the Conservative Freedom Caucus, which he helped co-found. And now Donald Trump reportedly tells aides he wants to back a primary challenge for Amash as revenge. This is sort of what happens, I guess, if you challenge Donald Trump. You become a pariah in your own party. The top Republican in the House, Kevin McCarthy, scoffing at the mention of this new Republican critic of Trump.
Reaction to the news that Justin Amash is leaving the Freedom Caucus, and should he also leave the GOP conference?
Justin Amash, I guess, decided to leave the Freedom Caucus. Justin Amash can determine his own future, but I think in a philosophical basis, he's probably in a different place than the majority of all of us.
Philosophy. That is the one place that has not come up as a difference, at least in voting. Take a look at Amash getting the perfect scores from well-established conservative groups, Club for Growth, National Right to Life. Amash is a traditional libertarian conservative in the sense that he overlaps with Republicans on a host of policy issues, and where he's broken is, as far as we can tell, not about philosophy of government, but on something apparently unforgivable to today's Republican leadership in Congress, confronting Donald Trump.
I think it's really important that we do our job as a Congress, that we not allow misconduct to go undeterred, that we not just say someone can violate the public trust and that there are no consequences to it.
The applause you hear there is in Amash's district, which again is reasonably conservative. And then tonight, Amash breaking with Republicans voting to hold two Trump cabinet officials in contempt so that they are forced to cooperate with Congress. I'm joined now by Washington Post columnist E.J. Dionne and editor-at-large for the Libertarian Reason magazine, Matt Welch. Matt, is there an argument that he is being conservative and Republicans are against that?
Sure. I mean, there's the argument that he was a conservative back when Republicans were in the opposition to a president. Freedom Caucus was founded in large part, or in some part, as being a check on Barack Obama's executive privilege and his executive overreaching authority. And so that was something that Republicans cared about when they didn't have the White House. They stopped caring about that largely, including in the Freedom Caucus, once they had a Republican in the White House. He, being more philosophically tethered than most people, being more principled than most people in Congress, didn't change just because the personnel changed. And so always that's out of favor in Washington. People tend to be pretty opportunistic when it comes to their principles.
And EJ, for all the people saying, where are the Republicans who will stand up, shouldn't they be backing or praising this Republican who's standing up and apparently taking a lot of heat for it?
Well, they should. And the problem is that if Justin Amash faces a primary, a lot of the Republicans who would back him up are no longer Republicans. If you look at what's happened to the Republican Party, even before Trump, but especially under Trump, they have become a much older party, somewhat more male party, and a much wider party than they were 30 years ago, but even to some degree since they were 10 years ago. And that's why people like Mark Sanford, who was also something of a real libertarian, the way Matt is, the way Justin Amash is, why he lost that Republican primary. But it's notable that he lost the primary and then the seat went Democratic. And I think one of the facts about the 2018 election that's so important is a lot of people who used to be willing to vote for moderate Republicans or libertarian Republicans have stopped voting Republican under Trump. And that's why Republicans think they can win that seat.
It's the chicken or the egg there, in that if they're gone, then that's not part of the coalition anymore. EJ, what else do we learn from Donald Trump's anger here? Because the White House has tried to argue he welcomes impeachment. He seems to be undercutting that spin when he fixates, obsesses, and attacks the one Republican backing impeachment.
Right. Well, the Post had a really good story. The Washington Post had a good story today where there seemed to be division and ambivalence inside the administration, that there are some Trump folks who say, impeachment will rile up the base. They'll look really political. But on the other side, impeachment is not being impeached is not a good look for
Well,
a
I'm
president.
asking specifically whether Donald Trump just exposed himself because he's the president. They're claiming he welcomes it. If he welcomed it, he'd say, "The water's warm. Bring me a few more Amashes. I'd love to have this fight."
Ari, I can't believe you're expecting any philosophical consistency from Donald Trump. Yeah, I mean, of course, he doesn't like anybody who's against him on anything. And Justin Amash spoke out really strongly, and because he's a Republican, it's probably he's a more threatening voice than anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. He's got that credibility, even if they're trying to undercut it. Matt, I want to widen out beyond Trump and talk about the Freedom Caucus. At this point, given that you're a credible, analyst here of all these issues, is this a real thing anymore, or does this become really looking like an adjunct of the Republican Party and not standing for independent values? Because what I mean is, they're welcome to have their views, but if their views are wholly and completely in line with the GOP, then they don't really need a caucus, do they?
I mean, they issued a statement condemning Justin Amash after he came out with his pro-impeachment talk, and it happened in the same week that basically lawmakers were conspiring with one another to eliminate the debt ceiling, just wave it away. That's what they used to care about, is the debt ceiling, and spending, and surveillance. No, they are an attack dog element for Donald Trump. Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan in particular have been running interference for him, and this is a huge shift from March and April of 2017, when the Freedom Caucus was rightly seen as the biggest obstacle in Trump's path to repeal and replace Obamacare. So he was calling out Mark Meadows and Justin Amash by name back then, and it worked. He brought the Freedom Caucus to heel. The Freedom Caucus, as an ideological, philosophically based thing, does not exist. It is an attack dog for Donald Trump. He domesticated that bloc.
Well, it's fascinating to hear you say that. You have the credibility to say it, and it goes to how we understand these things. Because if the Tea Party and the Freedom Caucus were Obama-era cutouts as an excuse to be partisan and nothing more, if that's what they ultimately are exposed for, that's important. And credit to Mr. Amash if he is trying to fight for something different than that. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.